Hey folks, I'm Michael Lovados. Torrent, this is Resident Expert. I'm here today to talk to you about The Walking Dead and the differences between the comic book and the TV series. So join me for 6 things you probably could have googled. The Dixon Brothers don't actually exist. That's right, Merle and Daryl, our biker bad boys, aren't actual characters in the comic books. They don't appear for one frame, they're never alluded to, they're never mentioned. They just plain do not exist in the comic book universe. Apparently they were written exclusively for the show, and they were written for the purpose of offsetting Rick's depressive, borderline psychotic anti-hero-ness. So when he's being all depressed and lunatic-y talking into a phone, Daryl and Merle, and then later on Daryl because Merle dies, spoiler alert, are generally just being awesome. Tyrese's story is significantly different in the comic book than it is from the TV show. While he is portrayed as being somewhat unpredictable in the TV series, the comic book takes it to a whole other level. Take for example when his daughter and her boyfriend make a suicide pact with each other. Tyrese finds out about it, strangles her boyfriend to death, waits for him to turn into a zombie, and then dismembers him piece by piece, waiting to give the killing blow until after he's lying there in pieces on the floor. He's an angry man. Don't touch his daughter. Hey, do you remember that time that the governor gave Rick that tour through Woodbury? Yeah, you probably don't unless you've read the comics. You probably also don't remember the fact that he takes him down to their medical facilities and, you know, they have a good, long, hard discussion. And then out of nowhere, the governor picks up a knife and cuts Rick's hand off. Cuts it off, doesn't get reattached, it's just off for good. So Rick is forever running around with a stump in the zombie apocalypse. The governor has an affinity for cutting things off. We spoke about Tyrese in our last point. He cut his head off. While we're on the subject of the governor, how about that time that he locked Michonne in a room and brutally raped her for days on end? Probably again not something you'd see on the TV series, and to be fair, I'm not exactly sure how they would even allude to something like that without having people jump up and down. What makes this even more brutal is Glenn was kept in the cell next to her and heard the entire thing. He wasn't tortured in any way, he was just forced to sit there and listen to Michonne be brutally raped day after day, wondering when it would be his turn. Eventually they let him escape and he runs back to the prison, and that's when the governor figures out that Rick's people are in the prison. I hate to continue with the governor, but he is a very interesting character, and because most of the stuff he did was so bad, they didn't get a chance to show it on TV, so I want to let you know what you've been missing out on. The governor's own end actually came at the people of Woodbury's hand. When he attacks the prison, he obviously has the survivors there outmatched and they try and flee. Laurie grabs her baby, because both of them are still alive at this point, and he brutally shotguns them to death. His people see this and think, hey, maybe these people aren't as bad as the governor's been telling us. Actually, maybe he's the one that's kind of a dick. They turn on him, beat him to death with their hands, and that's the last we ever see of anyone from Woodbury. They don't join the group, they don't come to the prison, none of those silly shenanigans. The group just runs off and leaves the people of Woodbury to deal with their own mess. Our final point may be a spoiler because this TV series hasn't reached this point. But at this stage, the comic books and the TV series have split so long ago, it's very unlikely we will come back around to this point. A vicious bandit king by the name of Negan beats Glenn to death with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. He calls it Lucille, his vampire bat. Negan's kind of a cool guy. The scene is very vicious and it happens in The Walking Dead 100. It was a very polarizing issue and a lot of people stopped reading the comics after this happened. The scene is gruesome, you see his eyes burst out of their sockets, his brains leak onto the ground. It's all in black and white, but that actually makes it a little bit worse. Here's hoping that you, the TV viewer, doesn't have to go through with that. I remember reading it myself. It made me very hot. Not in a sexual way, in a fight or flight kind of way. I was on the train and I was like, I need to get out of this train, this is terrible. But then it passed because it's just a comic book. Thanks for watching guys. If you've liked this, go watch the other ones that you probably haven't watched and join us next week when I do an undetermined amount of things about an undetermined topic. Speaking of Daenerys, did you know that at the start of season 1, she's 13 years old? So when Khal Drogo bends her over and takes her savagely from behind, 13 years old. In the book, it's even more uncomfortable.